What's up to everybody in the waiting room who is waiting to join me live? I just did go live. So if you can hear me, I just wanted to say welcome to an Ask Me Anything session. This is kind of an impromptu one. I'm experimenting with different platforms. So this is on my own YouTube channel, but I wanted to do these occasionally as an extra opportunity for people to benefit from having access to me and learning more about selling on Amazon. So if you are here joining me to ask questions, then you are in the right place. I see that we already have one question in the chat from Kanika, who has asked me, when you create the shipment plan to send over your products, is it better for you to put a later date for them to expect the products in case of any delays, or does it have to be an exact date? So this is a good question, because actually when you create the shipping plan in your Seller Central backend, rather than telling Amazon the date that they should receive the product, instead what you do is you tell Amazon the date that you're actually going to ship the products to them. So in my case, when I would do this, I would be sending them from my home here in Texas to the warehouse that they specified for me in Dallas. And so I would tell them that on this date is when I'm going to drop it off with UPS. So based on their knowledge of the origin address and the date that I'm dropping it off with the courier, they calculate how long it will probably take for it to arrive with them. You don't need to tell Amazon the date that they should expect it. So in that case, you might be wondering, well, what if I want my supplier to send it for me? How can I know? That's why I always recommend, if you've watched me at all, you've heard me say this, I always recommend that you have your products sent somewhere where you can receive them and inspect them and then forward them on to Amazon. Because that way it'll be a lot easier to do that shipping plan with Amazon. But hope that's helpful, Kanika. You said, is it possible to have your suppliers reserve or refrain from selling or advertising a specific product that you buy from them? And if so, would there be some kind of contractual agreement to do so? Everything is possible, but not everything is probable. So if you are working with a supplier in China, this is going to be almost impossible for you to arrange as an individual seller. I do think that very large companies, massive corporations that do things on a scale way beyond what we individual sellers do, they likely enter into these kinds of contracts with their manufacturers, even in Asia. And they have ways of leveraging their power to make sure that their suppliers are actually adhering to these agreements. But you're not really going to be able to control your supplier from doing this at all. So if your manufacturer is a Chinese factory and they want to sell their product on Amazon, there's really nothing you can do to stop them from doing that. Now, they would probably put it under their own listing, and they would use one of those nonsense names that you see all the time on Amazon. So, I don't think they're going to write a better listing than you would. But yeah, there's really not a way to keep them from doing that, at least when you're just starting out. But I also want you to keep in mind that that's not usually a huge risk to you, just because a lot of these factories focus on making products, but not necessarily selling them to consumers. They're in the business of trying to find really good partners like yourself to work with, who will order those products in bulk, and who know how to market those products to a Western audience. So if they are smart and they know what their relative advantage are, their comparative advantage is, they're not even going to be trying to do this. Now, yeah, it's true that a lot of Chinese factories have a presence on Amazon, but they don't always write very good listings. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. And then you might also wonder, oh, what if they, sell their generic product to one of my competitors? Again, you won't really be able to stop them from doing that. You might be able to have like a non-disclosure agreement or a non-compete agreement, but enforcing contracts, especially in China, is extremely difficult to do. So, Kanika, hopefully those answered your questions. I know that we don't have a lot of people with us yet, since I did just get this started. So if you are still with me and you have other questions, you basically have the floor. So feel free to put more of those in the chat. Hopefully, once I made this go live, YouTube is kind of pushing it to people who are currently online, and they will see it. So, but yeah, this one, I should have done a better job of advertising this one beforehand. The last session that I did here on my channel, I definitely marketed it a bit better. So, Kanika, you watch me often and appreciate my content. Thank you for saying so. Out of curiosity, how many Tooltip Tuesdays have you attended? How long have you been coming to my sessions and learning about e-commerce? It's always super helpful for me to learn about who the audience is, because from my perspective, I'm just talking to myself. All I can see is people's text chats, but I always love to get to know them a little bit better. Hopefully, there's not a delay. I'm pretty sure I made sure that it's not going to throttle people from putting comments in the chat box. So you said probably over 6 weeks now. Wow. Okay. Well, welcome to this session. I'm glad that you're getting value out of them. It's always gratifying when people tell me that they are learning valuable stuff from me. So today, I think I recognize your name from over there on Jungle Scout. So, can you tell me like which stage of the process are you in? Have you found a product to launch? Are you still doing research on a product? Are you looking for a supplier right now? I know that it's a months long process, so people are all over the place when I do these kinds of sessions. You seem like you know what you're asking, so and if you've been watching me for 6 weeks, you're probably pretty well on your way to that. But yeah, let me know a little bit about yourself as well, since you guys always get to hear from me. I'm always just blathering at the camera about my experiences. But you said you found a product, you found some suppliers, you're just on the way to reaching out to them. That's good. I remember when I, first started doing that, I thought, I don't know how to reach out to suppliers. I don't know what they're expecting. And then I realized that it's very informal. There is certainly a certain etiquette because obviously they have their own culture, but for the most part, they're just hungry for customers as well. So as long as you can tell them what you're looking for, they're usually pretty willing to answer you. Actually, then as I spend more time on Alibaba, I started getting messages from kind of irrelevant suppliers who were just trying to reach out to me and sell me their products. So you have an LLC already. That's good. Again, if anybody's watching the replay of this, an LLC is not strictly necessary to sell online, but I always recommend it as a really good idea because your LLC doesn't have to match your brand name at all. It can literally just be like a sort of name for your business entity, and you can use a single LLC for multiple brands if you want to. So it's a good idea to have one just because if you do run into any kind of legal issues, then you have that extra layer of protection where your personal assets will be protected, only your business assets. However, if you do set up an LLC, then it would be a really good idea for you to also make sure that you go and set up a separate business checking account, a business credit card. It makes doing your own accounting a lot easier, even though if you're just a single entrepreneur and you're filing your taxes, it acts as a pass-through entity. So it's really like, it doesn't really complicate filing your taxes or anything, but you do have that extra layer in case somebody wants to pursue legal action against you. And when you have those separate accounts, it helps keep everything nice and clean. But I'm kind of a control freak and OCD that way when it comes to keeping records. So you said you're nervous, which is, again, that's also fine. I remember feeling like I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody knows what they're doing, honestly. Everybody is winging it until they get enough experience under their belt that they start to feel more confident about it. So yeah, when I sent my first payment over to my supplier, even though I was using my business credit card and I used Alibaba's trade assurance, it was still a really nerve-wracking experience because I had never spent that much money on something like that before. But hey, I'm still here with a roof over my head and food on the table. It worked out. The particular product that I had been ordering, I'm no longer selling because it didn't really pan out. It wasn't really that profitable. And that was also partly because I was selling it mostly on my Shopify store rather than on Amazon. So with Shopify, there was a lot more costs involved. So, but yes, you do have to take risk. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Fortune favors the bold and all of that. So the nice thing that I've said, I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but one thing I also tell people to try to make them feel a little better about selling online is that I really like this business opportunity because even if you have to sell your products a little bit more slowly than you anticipated, you can usually offload them over time and kind of try to break even on stuff. I have always been mystified by people who are just burning with desire to open a brick and mortar store where they actually have to like buy equipment and they have to enter into a rent contract with a landlord and they need certifications and all kinds of licenses from the government and hiring staff. Like I have no desire to do any of that at all because it's so much more extra money and time. Like what I really like about selling on Amazon is that although you do need a certain amount of capital to start, it is much more accessible for individuals who love building systems and who have that drive to just go and launch something. And then once you have it set up, it does, I wouldn't say it runs itself. The idea of passive income is kind of a myth, but it is true that while there's a lot of work up front, once you do the heavy lifting, then it tends to kind of run more smoothly than other types of businesses. So there's always stuff that can go wrong, of course, and but I like that it is doable from pretty much anywhere that you have a solid internet connection. I think I see that there's a couple more people in here than there were when I started it. So if anybody else has questions, the session should last for about an hour, depending on how many people watch. So if you would like to know about selling on Amazon, please do uh, ask away in the chat. Otherwise, it's just me talking to myself. I would love to know more too about your experience, doing this whole process, product research, all that. If you're using Jungle Scout, how is that? What would you like to be different about that? Like, what's confusing? What do you wish worked better? My role there is to really keep my ear to the ground, make sure that our users are having a great experience, and that it's easy for them to get going on this journey. So, if you have comments or feedback to share about that, please let me know as well. It's so funny when from my end over here, it'll tell me how many people are viewing the session. And so right now it's okay, we have another name. So Sade, you said you feel like the thing with Jungle Scout is they have so many features, but it takes a while to learn them all. That is definitely true. And actually, I was just in a meeting earlier today where we are really buckling down and honing in on how to make that less overwhelming, because the reality is that depending on what stage of this journey you're in, you really don't need all of those at one time. You need to just focus on the ones that are relevant to you. So yes, I know there's a lot. And honestly, I kind of take for granted how many years I've spent living and breathing those tools. So to me, I know them like the back of my hand, but for other people, there's a learning curve. But we are definitely focusing on improving that experience so that people can find exactly what they're looking to do immediately and have an easier time using it. So Natty, you said, I'm having a hard time finding a niche with low competition. Is it worthy to try selling if there are a couple of new sellers that started in 2023 and are selling well? Yeah, I would say if the people only just got started recently, that could be a good sign that you are one of the first movers. I'm actually the product that I'm waiting to receive, which is supposedly in the port here in the US, but I haven't got an update from FedEx yet that they've picked it up or not. That one of the reasons that I decided to try this product was because I noticed that there weren't really a lot of sellers, and the ones that had been up had been selling this product since maybe 2021. So only like a year or two, which is not really a long time. If there's a lot of sellers that have been selling a product for like, 5 or even 4 years, then it's maybe a little more saturated. So yeah, I think that might be a good indicator, but without seeing all the data, it's a little bit hard for me to say. I will reassure you, Nadia, and just let you know that it is a challenge to find low competition niches. And a lot of the times, if there's not a lot of competition, there's often not a lot of demand either. So one of the mistakes that I think I see a lot of people make is that they think of a niche, they think that they've made a specific grouping of products, but they're still thinking a little bit too broadly. And that's why it appears really competitive. So let me think here. An example would be like people who are into animals, like the pets category is a super popular one, and as a whole it is very saturated in the United States. However, there's so many things that you could do within the pets category, because you could focus on a specific kind of pet, like fish only, like no dogs, no cats, just fish. And then of fish, you could focus specifically on enthusiasts who are into saltwater aquariums. Like already you've niched down into a very specific group of people who are looking for things. If you really look for those kinds of products, I think that you will find that the level of competition reduces pretty drastically compared to even looking at something like, fish enthusiasts. Like look for people who are into a specific kind of fish, or a specific biome, like people who are into tropical fish, or people who are into cold water fish, or people who want to do an outdoor koi pond versus people who want to have an aquarium in their house. Like that's just one example of how I would approach niching down. I'm trying to think of another one is like people who are into scuba diving, which I don't do. I know nothing about scuba diving. I've never done it in my life, but I know that that's a hobby for some people. But I also know that within that hobby, there's different kinds that people can do because some people do it just recreationally on vacation. Some people really are like passionate about it and they train for like rescue missions and stuff. Some people really like scuba diving in caves, which has makes no sense to me. I'm claustrophobic, so the thought of being in a dark, cramped environment, even on land, is frightening enough as it is, much less having a heavy tank and all this gear on and being underwater. But that is another idea of how you can niche down to a more specific audience and hopefully find less competition. So Natty, while I'm talking here, I would like to ask you, what have you done in I'm assuming that you're a Jungle Scout user as well. What have you done in tools like Opportunity Finder or our extension in order to try to find these niches with low competition? Sometimes people don't know quite which parameters to put into the tools, and so they get stuck because they keep getting results that aren't speaking to them. So maybe I can help unblock you if I can get a better idea of what kinds of limits that you've been putting into the filters when you're looking at these niches. I have actually been recommending that if people are using Jungle Scout, that they start by using Opportunity Finder rather than the product database, just because it does give you a little more to work with, and actually is really good for getting ideas for things that you didn't never think existed. The product that I had mentioned a few minutes ago that I'm waiting on is not anything that I particularly have had a need for or anything that is particularly exciting to me. It just came up when I was looking through different niches, and I was kind of looking for stuff that had a certain threshold of revenue and something that was like within a certain dimensions and weight and all of that. Um, you said you're using the numbers advised in the videos of the Academy and the guide to set the filters. That's good. I'm not knocking those at all because they're a great place to start. But I know a lot of people get a little bit hung up because they hear Lenny or me kind of give them some ballpark figures in terms of like minimum dollar amount that these should be selling for, or the maximum number of reviews that they should be having. And then they kind of box themselves into that. Something that I'd recommend you do is maybe take one of those parameters and just kind of like push it further. Like you leave the other ones the same, but maybe look for products that have 150 reviews or even 200, because just because they have more than what our general recommendation is doesn't mean that they aren't good opportunities. Those are just sort of numbers to give people some context into what they should be aiming for, but you definitely want to look beyond that. One of the things that I've really liked doing now is, having sold online for a few years, is looking at, well, what kind of monthly revenue do I want to bring in? And especially if you're looking for something that could provide you with a full-time income. If you think about it, I've given advice to people about, oh, what should my selling price be? And what should my profit margin be? And so like, if you're aiming at a sort of 33% profit margin, then that means you'd be bringing in a third of your selling price. So make the math easy. If you're selling a product for $100, then you're bringing in $33 of profit on that. So if you know that you want to make X number of dollars in profit, you just need to take that amount and then multiply it out by 3 to figure out what your selling price should be. And then once you see what the selling price should be, you would then multiply that by like 30 days to see how much revenue you should be generating in a month in order to get that 30% profit. That's the kind of thing that you could do to try to find products more than just putting in stuff like the minimum sales price or the number of reviews on the listing. So now, of course, the profit margin is going to be different depending on your niche and sort of like how much capital you have to work with. And I do want to let people know that when you're just starting out, the first time you do this, your profit margin is probably not going to be 33%. I'd say if you can get like a 10% to a 15% profit margin, that's still good for a first timer. Any profit is good, but you're going to need to invest more money in stuff like PPC at the beginning. And so Kanika said, how do you best calculate how much to charge for a product? So going back to that rule of thirds I just mentioned, where you want a third of your selling price to be your profit margin. Another one of those thirds should be the actual cost of the goods itself. And then the other third would be like dedicated to marketing. So let me reorder those, because obviously you got to have the product first. So the first third of your selling price, of that $100 selling price, that should be the cost of the units from your supplier. So you would spend no more than $33 per unit for a product that you want to sell for $100. Then the next third would be dedicated to advertising efforts like PPC campaigns on Amazon. And then the remaining third is hopefully your profit margin that you get to take home after those other two-thirds of expenses. So if you want to know how to best calculate how much to charge for a product, when you're looking at suppliers on Alibaba and you're getting information from them about how much they're going to sell you their product per unit, take that per unit price from the supplier and then multiply that by about 3. And then that should give you kind of a rough idea of what your selling price should be on Amazon. Now, if you find that when you go on Amazon and you look for those kinds of products and the selling price is like way lower than that, you probably won't be able to compete because people are already getting that. Those people who are selling it for way cheaper, they're likely buying it in bigger bulk. And so they're getting a better per unit price. So it's, cheaper for them and they can charge less for it. So that's my recommendation is like multiply the wholesale price by 3, go check on Amazon to see whether that price is roughly what people are selling it for. And if it is around that price on Amazon, then that's a good sign because then you could hopefully make some profit on it. These are good questions. And we have more people online now. So don't be shy, guys. If you do have something that you've been wanting to ask or you feel stuck with something, I am here. I'm all ears for you. Let me know what you want to learn today. And it could be beyond Amazon as well, like anything related to selling online. I'm actually in the process of writing a course for Shopify because that's really where I got started. I did it the hard way by building my own website and then paying Facebook and Instagram to drive traffic to my website. And then I actually launched on Amazon. Most people decide to launch on Amazon first because it's a lot less work. You don't have to like set up a website. All you have to do is set up a product listing and tap into that traffic and whatnot. But I'm paranoid and I had heard horror stories about people getting their traffic killed on Amazon and then Amazon going and finding their supplier and then basically like selling your product. I don't think that happens quite as often as I was led to believe when I started, but that's partly why I decided to go the hard route and do it. And also in French, we have a phrase that's pourquoi faire simple quand on peut faire compliqué, which is why do things the easy way when you can do things the hard way. So, okay. So today you asked about how much it costs approximately to do ads on Instagram or Facebook. That totally depends on how much information you have to start with. So in broad terms, whenever you set up a campaign on Facebook, it's actually the same system. Meta is the parent company. And so when you make a campaign in their campaign builder, it will actually put it on both of those platforms for you, unless you tell it to not put it on Instagram or whatever. And so the way that Facebook ads work is that you get this little bit of code called a pixel that you then go and install on your own website. And then what it does is whenever people visit your website, if they are already logged into Facebook within their browser, it will observe their behavior. So if they visit certain product listings, or if they add products to their cart, or if they even put their payment info in, but they don't check out, or if they check out, it will like track all of these activities and it will observe the sorts of people who are doing those. And then it's feeding that information back to Meta's campaign, and it's looking for people on Facebook or Instagram who fit these similar profiles. But if you can come to Facebook with a list of people from, like, if you've already run a business and you know that the product you're advertising would appeal to the people you've already sold to, if you've got a list of customer emails and all that, you can feed that to Facebook and then make a lookalike audience of similar people. And that'll really help kickstart it. So yeah, if you come to Facebook with a lot more data, then it's going to cost much less. Whereas if you're just starting out cold from scratch, you do need to pay Facebook for a while to run these ads, for it to test them and kind of observe people's behavior. So personally, I actually think that Meta is kind of a ripoff, because back in the day, you got a lot more bang for your buck with it. But now I think it's kind of like the slot machines in Las Vegas, where like they know how to get you just enough traffic that you keep paying them for it. Because if you don't, then your traffic dies. But it's like barely enough to be profitable. Now, it could be because I was kind of a beginner that I didn't know exactly what I was doing. There are people whose entire full-time jobs is being professional advertisers. But I mean, it's not rocket science. And I definitely tested and tried things. So I start out with like a budget of like $25 per day. And then I like test ad creative and see which one is performing better. But again, it takes some time. It takes about a week at least for you to test it and see which version of your ad is performing better. And if you're trying to go for like checkout events immediately rather than doing a funnel where you like kind of show people your brand and then you retarget them with a different ad that kind of draws them in, you're going to spend more per click for the trying to just go directly for the sale versus like doing the funnel, because making brand awareness is a lot cheaper than actually trying to get a valuable conversion event. So it's very hard for me to say how much approximately it costs to do ads on there. I can just tell you that it eats up a lot of your potential profit margin because you're paying for expensive ads to get traffic. On Amazon, you can pay for ads, but generally you're still getting a lot more organic traffic than you ever would on your own website. And so you can be making sales while spending less on money. So here's one way to give you another perspective is that on a website that's selling anything on the internet, especially in e-commerce, usually the conversion rate, the average conversion rate, by which I mean the average percent of people who actually check out and buy the product is 2%. And that sounds super low, but like that means of every 100 people who visit your website, only 2 of them will actually buy the product. But that is normal. And so when you're doing ads on Facebook, if you can get a return on your ad spend of like 2 or like 2.5 or 3, then I'd say that you're doing pretty well for Facebook, because you're like hitting people with an ad while they're just trying to be entertained on Facebook. They're not necessarily in a shopping mood. Like it's a very different environment than on Amazon where they're there to shop. It's specifically built for buying products. So when you run ads on Amazon, you actually should be expecting a return on your ad spend closer to like 6 or 7, just because of the nature of that platform. And I don't know exactly what the average conversion rate on Amazon is versus like an independent website, but I'm very confident in saying that it's higher than 2%. I think that in general, conversion rates and then the expected return on ad spend on Amazon are actually quite a bit higher than doing it on your own website. So hopefully that's not too boring. I'm just like rambling here about advertising and different platforms and all of that. There's pros and cons to doing it on both of them. I really do think though that if you're just starting out and you've never sold before, going the Amazon route will definitely be a lot easier for you. It's going to be less expensive as well. So don't worry too much about the trying to set up a Shopify store until you actually start proving your product has demand and people will buy it regularly. And then you could open up another channel on like Shopify or whatever. So I don't see any new questions yet at the moment, but let me know, since I just kind of wrapped up that section about advertising, what else would you like to know? Trying to see whether or not any more people are coming in. We definitely have a few more people than we did at the beginning of the hour. I am planning to do this for at least another 30 minutes, but if people all abandon ship, then I guess I'll wrap it up early. So seem to have a little bit more of a quiet crowd today than we did the last time. I'm also scrolling through the chats just to make sure I didn't overlook any of them. I don't think so. Remember, like I was saying a little bit earlier before more people showed up, is that feel free to tell me, just even if you don't have a question, like share with me who you are, like how long you've been doing this, how you discovered the e-commerce opportunity, what's driving you, like what's your passion, what motivates you to build this kind of a business. Natty, you said more questions on Jungle Scout. In the Opportunity Finder, there's a column called Niche Score. For a product, it is 9 and also very low competition. But when I run the extension, it says high competition. It's confusing. How should this be interpreted? Yes, I get this question quite often because actually the way that the web app of Jungle Scout works is different from the extension. And it's primarily because the Opportunity Finder and the product database are separate databases that Jungle Scout has built, and they refresh more slowly. When you use the extension within the Chrome browser, when you're on Amazon.com, that's actually scanning the results right there in real time for you. Also, keep in mind that when you do a search on Amazon for a product, the results that you see are actually tailored to you as a customer. And I know this because I did a test with a friend of mine who lives in California. We were on a Zoom call together, and we both searched for her product together. And I shared my screen and I showed her the order of the results for me, and her ordered results were different. So Amazon is going to think about your purchasing history, your IP address, like your location in the US or the world or whatever. And so when our extension scans the results, it's looking at a snapshot in time, whereas the opportunity finder is really scanning a more solid database of products that kind of fall into a niche. So the niche score in opportunity finder should not be equated with the opportunity score in the extension. And actually, when people use the extension, they don't realize that they need to refine the list a little bit, because if you do a kind of general search on Amazon, you'll start getting products that are really apples and oranges comparisons. And so what you need to do is go through the table of the extension and look at the thumbnails and the products and be like, this one isn't exactly the product that I really want to research. It's too different. So then you can hide that. And once you do that, then the data at the top of the extension will adjust, and that opportunity score will adjust in real time as well. And usually, once you start removing products from the table, you'll get a better opportunity score. But most people, their problem is they just do a search on Amazon and then they see a score of like 3 or 4, and they're like, I can't find anything because it's too competitive. And it's just because they're not refining the results enough. They don't know how to actually search properly. So hopefully that helps you, Natty. Usually what I do is I start with Opportunity Finder to get ideas for products. And then if they look promising on Opportunity Finder, then I go to Amazon and I search for those products, but I use a couple of different keyword phrases to see what comes up. One of those keyword phrases might turn up a way better opportunity score in the extension than the other ones does. And that could be because one of the phrases that I used was maybe more niched down, so there's less competition, or maybe it was just like a more relevant keyword for those products. And so Amazon is showing me like better quality, higher selling products than if I put a worse keyword phrase in. So yeah, if you're doing it live, if you've got it open while you're here in my session, let me know if that actually works for you. If you notice that it actually improves your results at all, because I also want to know if anything's broken, so I can bring that to our engineers' attention. Welcome to anybody who's come in lately while I was talking. I cannot see your names unless you put something in the chat. And I know a lot of times people just like to lurk and they just want to listen to other people's questions and all that. But we do have a fairly small crowd today. So if you want to ask a question about selling online, you have the floor. You don't have a lot of competition, unlike some of the sessions where I can't get to all the questions. So. And if not, if I don't see any more questions within maybe another minute, maybe I will just wrap this one up at a half hour today. So that way we can just get this one up on the channel for future reference. So just wanted to say thank you to those of you who have been watching for a while. I did not expect that people would come back so often to those weekly sessions of Tooltip Tuesday, but that is helpful for me because it means that it's working. So I always appreciate the very nice comments that people leave all the time, and trying to give more variety of content here, but it's a little bit difficult with everything going on in my life. It's not a hobby. It's definitely something I'm trying to grow, but it's also something that I want to do well. And so the the upload rate has been a little bit sporadic, but yeah, as I mentioned, I am working on some more educational material that's more about Shopify, just because I do also hear from people a lot that they're interested in doing that route, but it remains kind of a mystery since so many people focus on the Amazon opportunity. So all right. Well, I am not seeing any more questions coming through the chat, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. Waiting for the last minute to see whether anybody jumps in and puts one in there, but it looks like they have. Okay, so Jen, we do have another person. You said, I started a product that became very, very competitive and other sellers increased so much. Out of curiosity, Jen, how long did it take for that to happen? Like between when you launched the product and then you notice this increased competition, how much time passed between those two events? You already spent almost $1,000 in 2 weeks. Oh wow. Um, no, I want to make sure that you are monitoring your bids because it's possible that you might need to just put a cap on that if you're spending more than you want to on those advertisements. You can give Amazon specific rules about not overblowing your budget, but I'm wondering whether this maybe did you find a product a couple months ago and then between when you ordered it from your supplier and when you received it and were able to start selling it, were there a lot more sellers, or was it the time I ordered and until now I launched 2 weeks ago? Okay, well in that case, how much time passed between when you ordered the product and when you launched it? Because I know it takes a couple months for it to be shipped across the ocean and for it to be distributed in Amazon's warehouses and all of that. It'd be kind of impressive if other people were able to all come to market within a 2-month period. Like, I'm, I've been wondering whether something would happen myself. Oh, it's total over a year, unfortunately. Okay, well, yeah, that is a long enough time that several more sellers could come to market with a similar product. So, in that case, don't have very many suggestions. That's kind of the nature of selling on Amazon is that people are always coming and going. Now, just because a certain niche is a little bit saturated now doesn't mean that those sellers will be there forever. They might run into issues themselves. They might, they might not be profitable, maybe, or maybe they have a problem with their supplier. So if you find a product opportunity that looked like a good idea, but has become competitive, it might still be worth it for you to just keep an eye on it over time in case maybe in the future you can return to it and maybe get in a lull. Like maybe some of your competitors will go out of stock and then you could, you know, put your listing up. But Jen, did you have a specific question for me about this, or were you just kind of letting everybody know what can happen when you sell on Amazon? Actually, I fortunately didn't fall victim to it, but I was looking at a product at the beginning of last year that seemed like a good opportunity, and was going to go in on it with a friend, but things kept delaying us from actually buying the product. And then I looked at it like 5 months later on Amazon, and it was much more competitive. So I was actually kind of glad that I hadn't invested in that product because I don't know that we would have been able to succeed. But Jen, you said, is it worth doing external advertisements for that? I don't know if I would say that. You may not have been here earlier when I was talking about PPC advertising, but running ads on a platform like Facebook or Google is actually pretty expensive compared to doing it on Amazon. Which might be hard to believe if you've only ever done ads on Amazon, but because people on Amazon are already looking to buy things, the conversion rate for advertisements on Amazon is a lot better than if you're driving external traffic to it. So I would not recommend that you try to do ads elsewhere. I think you're going to spend more money, but it's not necessarily going to give you a big boost in sales. The only caveat to that would be if you already have a really good email list of people that you know would be interested in it, and then it might be worth it. But I would just stick to selling on Amazon. You may need to try different keywords. I don't know what kind of analysis you've done of your campaigns, but you could be just spending money on keywords that are not extremely relevant to your product, or maybe there's not enough search volume. I mean, it is possible that you just need to bid more money to win those auctions, but I would also make sure that your listing is optimized because there's certainly no point in spending thousands of dollars on advertisements if those ads are leading people to a listing that's not resonating with people, right? Like you have to make sure that the photos are really showing your product's benefits, that the bullet points are written in a way that's really going to like help convert people. And the way to do that is to put yourself in the shoes of the customer and think about what problem are they trying to solve? What problems are they running into with my competitors' products? What are the questions that they want to know? Like as an example, I was looking for a light recently for my backyard, and I wanted it to be solar powered so it could charge. I wanted it to be an LED, but I wanted it to be a certain color of light. Like all of the LEDs that I found were this really cold white light that reminded me of a prison. And I didn't want that. I really wanted like something with warmer kelvins. And I noticed that like some of the listings I looked at they included that information, which was very helpful. Some of them did not. So that's an example of like knowing your customer better than they know themselves. You can put that information there. Yep. Um, Hopefully that's helpful. All right, guys. Well, if you have any other questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. If not, then I will wrap this up and maybe we'll do another one in the future. But if you guys are already in Jungle Scout, you can always find me there for Tooltip Tuesday. So next session is on Tuesday at 2 o'clock Central Time, as always. I had intended to do these kinds of Ask Me Anythings here much more frequently on my channel, but that's been a little bit sporadic. So, just if you are subscribed to me, thank you very much for the support. You should get a notification if I schedule another one of these, and I will try to let people know who are on other webinars where I appear. So thank you all for joining me and for your questions. I hope that it was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on future events. Have a great weekend, everyone.